Okay, nice. All right. Okay, so today is Thursday, April 2nd. We're going to try these kind of live lessons / pre-recording lessons. And so I'm going to be having the PowerPoint screen right there, but then I'm also going to be explaining more things on this whiteboard right here, and hopefully you guys can see everything. So our big thing is we're going to be reviewing some information that we kind of misunderstood regarding Athens and their government. And then we're going to be looking at, was Athens a true democracy based off of our knowledge of the word democracy. And so your learning target is I can analyze primary sources to figure out how true of a democracy Athens really was. And then your success criteria is reading primary sources over democracy and Athens government. And then you're going to comprehend those sources. Again, my office hours are posted right there. Always you can email me. And then the Zoom live stream is also posted right there as well. So going to the next page. This is where you're going to see this video. So if you are going through the PowerPoint, this video is going to be right there. So the review based off of the quiz results. You guys did all right. It was, I think, a bit of a struggle just because, it's online learning and we're trying to figure things out and everything is just new and it's different and sometimes it can be a bit intimidating. So some things that we do need to go over is Athens. Oh, this is a horrible marker to use. My apologies. Let's try that. Okay, so some things that I do want us to kind of go over is I'm going to kind of bring this camera. Oh man, if you are watching this live, right, or if you're watching this, this whole ordeal of a live lesson is brand spanking new. So here we go. All right. Some things that we have to go over. Try again. Take two. We got to look at Athens before a democracy, okay? Oh, how do I spell democracy? Oh, I did. Oh, no, I did not. I'm going to get real excited that I just spelled that correct. So that's one thing we have to look at. And then again, our next thing is going to be the idea of a representative versus a direct democracy. So as a recap, before Athens hits a democracy where everyone is voting, there's a type of government involved. And I apologize for the weird glare that's happening right here. I've got a window above, and so it's shining down. Wonderful outside light, but horrible video light. But before Athens became a democracy, it's going to have one leader. One leader, okay? And our one leader is also going to be called a tyrant. Now, tyrants over here, these are people who usually obtain power illegally. And so they are, they might kill to get the power. They might take it. But they're also going to be very mean. Okay? And when you have a tyrant as your leader, it's one leader, as a quick recap as what a tyrant is, but that's the person's title. So like we could say that if Walnut is Athens, okay, if Walnut is our city of Athens, here I'll kind of make that real quick happen. So in our world, Walnut would be the same as Athens. Both are communities, okay? Then Foley, Mr. Foley, would be the tyrant. Okay? He's one person. He's the kind of head honcho in charge. I'm not saying that Mr. Foley is mean. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that Mr. Foley killed somebody to get the position. Nope, not saying that he took it. Nope, not saying any of that. What I'm saying is that Foley is one person in power, and he's not really a king. He didn't really inherit it from his dad. He just got the position through an interview. So that's why he would be like our tyrant, okay? And when you have a tyrant as a leader, your form of government is called a tyranny. Tyranny. And so it looks like this, okay? So if you saw this word and you were like, I have no clue what this word is, and you saw it on your test, well, it just means that you have a tyrant for a leader, okay? So I hope that helps a little bit there. So before Athens was a democracy, they had a series of tyrants, and those tyrants were their leaders. And some of these tyrants weren't always bad. Like maybe they killed somebody, but then when they got to power, they're actually a pretty cool guy. They maybe helped get rid of some slavery or decrease the amount of slavery or grant citizenship to more different people. And so they weren't always bad people. But what they were was a tyrant, and no one really had any voting power. And so through that, there was this uprising that took out the tyrants and instead placed a democracy. Okay? So a tyranny, whoa, I misspelled that word, according to the Google slide. Awkward taco. So a tyranny is a government where you have a tyrant as a leader, okay? And a tyrant is one leader. One person rules, all right? Now, moving on to the second portion of our recap is the difference. This thing's going to be falling a lot. I've got to figure out something better if I'm going to continue to do this style. It's going to be a difference between a direct democracy and a representative democracy. So on this side, I'm going to go direct. And on this side, I'm going to go representative. And I want to make sure I spell this one. Okay. So we have direct, and then we're going to have representative over here. When you have a direct democracy, this is where all citizens they're going to vote on everything. Everything. Okay? They're voting on everything. They're going to vote on when to go to war. They're going to vote on taxes that should be raised. They're going to vote on judges who are going to do trials. They may even vote on if somebody's guilty or not. They're voting on everything, okay? And this type of democracy, a direct democracy, That takes time. Because you are spending all of your time at the polls to vote on everything. Now, remember, it's only our citizens who can vote. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about how much of the Athenian population was actually a citizen of Athens, okay? But that's a direct democracy. You vote on everything. In a representative democracy, citizens will vote on people who will represent them okay? They're going to vote on people who will represent them. So in today's world of America, these people are your senators, your Congress people, okay? And I'm going to add congressmen/women there, okay? But these are your senators, and these are also your congressmen. So we, as citizens in America, we have a representative democracy. This is the one that we have, okay? When you turn 18, you will then vote on 5 people for Nebraska to go to Congress and represent you. And I believe in your guys' area, one of your Congress people is Jeff Fortenberry. I could be wrong. But Mr. Fortenberry, he's in Washington, D.C. right now voting on items based off of what the people of Grand Island want him to vote for. So if there's a bill that's coming and it's saying that he has a choice to allow, I'm trying to think of something here, maybe to allow corn production taxes to be decreased so that farmers can produce more corn and they don't have to worry about a tax, okay? He's going to call up his office in town, and they're probably going to do some calling around the city of Grand Island to find out what the people want. And if the people say, yes, we want that corn tax to be dropped, then he's going to vote to approve the bill. But if the people of Grand Island say, no, we don't want that corn tax to be dropped, we don't like it, then he's not going to vote to approve the bill and he'll deny it, okay? And so that's the representative democracy, is you've got people, it's one person who represents like a group of like 500, or I don't know, I'm making these numbers up, okay? Could be 50,000, who knows? Or 500,000 even. But it's one person who represents a large population, and that person is going to then vote based off of what their population they represent wants them to do, okay? So if we have Jeff over here, he is then, and here's our one person, and I'm going to go with, I think for Nebraska, it's 500,000, because that's the city of Omaha. They typically, when they outline the areas of representation, the districts, they use the biggest city for the numbers. So Jeff Fortenberry, he's going to represent all 500,000 people in Lincoln and Grand Island and Hastings and what other towns that they'll put in there that will equal that number, give or take. And he's in D.C., and he is voting yes or no on certain bills based off of, from D.C., what all of these people want him to do. Okay? So I hope that illustration kind of makes sense. You've got Jeff Fortenberry. He's a representative. He represents 500,000 people. He goes and works in Washington, D.C. In D.C., he votes to approve or deny certain bills. And these votes, this voting, is all based off of what these 500 people want him to do. Okay? So, again, just like it says right there, a direct democracy is we, the citizens, do all the voting. And representative democracy is we, the citizens, elect people to vote on our behalf, okay? So I hope that clears up a lot of confusion. If it doesn't, please email me, because these are two concepts that are really important for you to understand as American citizens and going into 7th grade, which is something that we have to think about. It's crazy that we're thinking about 7th grade and this social distancing environment, but here we are. So today's task is answering the historical question, what was Athens a true democracy? Answering the historical question, was Athens a true democracy? Remember, democracy, for those of us who need a quick recap, democracy is rule of the people, or rule by the people. Okay, the people rule. And so we're going to figure out, did all the people in Athens have a chance to rule? Was it a true democracy? I don't know. We're going to figure that out together, okay? Stay. All right, so here's our big task, and I'm going to move this little video or this viewfinder out of the way so that we can kind of see this better. It's going to take 2 days. Warning, this is a 2-day task. It's a big one. You need to figure out if Athens was a democracy based off the primary source documents, okay? And if you're wondering where those are located at, they're underneath the posting for today in classroom. Today, you'll be reading 5 documents. You've got document A is going to come from Pericles. Pericles, if you can remember, he was an Athenian leader. He was a really great leader, and he is the one that really pushes for democracy in Athens, okay? Then you're going to read document B, the Athenian Constitution. We also have a constitution, so maybe our founding fathers got some of their ideas for our government structure based off of Athens and Greece. I don't know. We'll find out. Then document C is going to be all about the Athenian population, and we're going to look a little bit about what that population looks like. And then document D is from Professor Hansen, and Professor Hansen is a professor at Cambridge, University of Copenhagen, not Cambridge, Copenhagen. And he's a professor of philosophy and the classics, which is just a fancy way of saying Greek. And then we'll look at Professor Camp, and Professor Camp actually directs excavations or archaeological dig sites of Athens, and so that's where his knowledge comes from. These are 5 primary sources, and then when you are done reading each one, you are going to answer some questions, and these questions are going to be located in the Athenian Democracy Guiding Questions, which is in coursework, Unit 7, Ancient Greece. Please email me or hop on the Zoom if you have any questions. 1 to 2 Zoom live stream. These documents are posted with today's announcement. The video on the first slide will have me reading them so you can follow along, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to move tabs, and I'm going to start reading, and then as I'm reading, I am going to stop, and I'm going to go over, I'm going to ask you guys the questions then that go with what we are, what we just read, okay? Sorry, I'm trying to find my mouse. It's hiding. Nope. Okay. All right. So here we go. Starting with document A. You want to follow along and have the tab with the reading questions open off the side. That's totally fine. So you're ready to go when it comes time to that. So document A is from Pericles. The following excerpt is from a speech known as the Funeral Oration, delivered by an Athenian general and politician Pericles in 431 BCE. Pericles was widely seen as the leader of Athens. He gave this speech during a funeral for Athenian soldiers who died in the first year of the brutal Peloponnesian War against Sparta, Athens' chief rival. The Athenian historian Thucydides included the speech in his book, The History of the Peloponnesian War. Historians are not sure when Thucydides wrote down the speech or how close his version was to the original. So here is Pericles' speech. Our constitution favors the many instead of the few. This is why it is called a democracy. If we took to the laws, they gave equal justice to all. Advancement in public life falls to one's reputation of good work. Social class, which means someone's position in society, is not allowed to interfere with someone's merit. Merit means talent, skills, or qualifications. And poverty does not block the way. So basically, they're saying right there in that sentence that social class isn't going to, where you stay on the social ladder, doesn't interfere with your talents, and being poor doesn't block the way towards like democracy and advancement in public life. Okay. And so that was all about advancing one's public social status. If a man is able to serve the state, he is not stopped by the obscurity of his condition. Obscurity means unknown or unimportant. So if somebody wants to serve as a soldier, they're not stopped by anything. The freedom which we enjoy in our government extends also to our ordinary life. There, far from being jealous of each other, we do not feel called upon to be angry with our neighbor for doing what he likes. But all this ease in our private lives does not make us lawless as citizens. Fear is our chief protection against us, teaching us to obey the magistrate and the law. Magistrates are government officials. So the questions that go with document A are, number 1, who was Pericles? And number 2, and feel free to pause this video so you can have time to answer. Number 2, according to Pericles, what were the characteristics of Athenian democracy? So what did Athenian democracy look like based off of what I just read? All right, document B, the Athenian Constitution. So, the following excerpt comes from the Athenian Constitution, written by the Greek philosopher Aristotle between 330 and 322 BCE. Aristotle was the leading Greek philosopher of the time and is credited with writing accounts for the constitutions of 170 different Greek states. Remember, philosopher just means person who likes to think a lot and likes to think about life. At the time that we are speaking, the people have secured their control of the state and established the constitution which exists at the present day. The democracy has made itself master of everything and the administrators of everything by its votes in the assembly and by the law courts. The present state of the constitution is as follows. The franchise means the right to vote and participate in government. The right to vote is open to all men who are citizens by birth of both parents. They are enrolled as citizens at the age of 18. On the occasion of their enrollment, the current citizens give their votes first on whether the new candidates appear to be of the age set by the law. If the candidates are not the right age, they are dismented back into the ranks of the boys. Secondly, the current citizens give their votes on whether the candidate is freeborn. And freeborn means not born to a parent who is a slave, and has 2 citizen parents as the law requires. If they decide that he is not a free man, he can appeal to the law courts. If the court decides that he has no right to be enrolled as a citizen, he is sold by Athens as a slave. If he wins his case, he has the right to be enrolled as a citizen without further question. All magistrates, and remember magistrates are government officials, all the magistrates that are responsible for the ordinary routine of administration are elected by lot. Lot means random lottery, in the assembly. However, the military treasurer, the commissioners of the festival fund, and the superintendent of the water supply are elected by vote. All military officers are also elected by vote. So that paragraph talks about how the government officials who are responsible for ordinary procedures of life, they are elected by a random lottery. except for the military financial person, and then the people who are the money makers or money collectors for festivals, and the superintendent of the water. They are elected by a vote, and all military officers are also going to be elected by a vote. So our questions for document B are, according to the Athenian Constitution, who has the right to vote in Athens? The next question for document B is, how did someone become enrolled as a citizen in Athens? So how could you be a citizen? How did you become a citizen, basically? Now we're going to move on to document C, and again, pause if I'm going too fast for you. So document C is a graph on the Athenian population. The data below comes from the book Wealthy Hellas, but written by Professor Joseph Abener in 2010. Abener is a professor of classical civilization and political science at Stanford University. So we have a table here, and you can't see me point to the screen, but I'm going to try to use one of these tools here. So our first table is our population group, and this table is going to then break down all the different types of people who are in Athens. And then you have the total number of those people in this table, and then that's a percentage of the population, and then this is, do they have the ability to vote or not? So if we look at our male citizens, there's about 229 of them total, or 29,900 of them total in Athens. I'm trying to find a better mouse. Oh well, 29,900 of them. That's only about 12% of the population that's a male citizen, and they get the right to vote. Then if we look at the citizens of women, female citizens, they are 29,900 as well, so that's even. Again, that's 12% of the population, and they do not get the right to vote. The children of those male and women make up for about 74,750, and that's about 30%, and kids do not get the right to vote, so you sixth graders would not get the right to vote. And then we've got our metrics down here, which I think are military personnel. I could be wrong though. Oh, they're down here. Metrics are foreigners or Greeks. That's right. So they're going to be people who are coming into Athens from other city-states that have settled in Athens just to trade. Okay, so like merchants. All right. They make up about 25,775. That's only 11% of the population. They do not get the right to vote. And then our final category is slaves. Slaves are going to make up 80,000% or 80,000 people. That is 34% of the vote, and they do not get the vote. So if we analyze this a little bit further, the total population of Athens is 240,325. And I would say that is close to the size of Lincoln, Nebraska. So if you think of Lincoln, Nebraska, that's about how many people Athens had. Only 12% of that entire number is able to vote. All right, only 12%. And that number is that 29,000 up here. So out of all of these people, only 29,900, about 30,000 people get to vote. So could be fair, could be not fair. That is something for you guys to ponder. So your questions that go with that table chart are as follows. What percentage of Athens' total population was able to vote? So what is that percentage number on this side? And then number 2, which groups of Athenians were able to vote? So tell me what kinds of people over here were able to vote. And then number 3 is which groups were not able to vote. So list the ones that could not vote for number 3. So document D is our next document. And it comes from Professor Hansen. So Morgens Herman Hansen was a professor of philosophy and the classics at the University of Copenhagen before retiring in 2010. He is considered a leading expert in the world on the subject of Athenian democracy. The following is an excerpt from the article he wrote in 1989. The objections regularly raised against Athenian democracy are twofold, which means there's 2 parts to those objections. First, democracy is the rule of the whole of the people, excluding minors and the foreigners only. Demo criteria, which is the Greek word for democracy. So basically, democracy was ruled by male citizens only, excluding women, free foreigners, and slaves. Thus, by our standards, it was an oligarchy, not a democracy. If you forgot what an oligarchy means, an oligarchy is a form of government in which a small group of people have power or control. Second, rule was exercised directly by the people, whereas democracy today means government by representatives of the people. Popular assemblies belong to the past, and direct democracy has been made impossible by the size of modern nations. Athenian democracy is criticized for being both democratic and less democratic than democracy. It is more democratic by being governed by the people instead of governed by those elected by the people. It is less democratic by narrowing down the concept of demos, which means the adult male citizens in assembly. So there it's kind of breaking down how it's more democratic because everyone is voting and it's not the representatives voting for the people. But then he's also saying that it's less democratic because it's only allowing those male citizens to vote that are in the assembly. So our questions to go with document D are, according to Hansen, how was Athens' political system more democratic than democracies we think of today, like the United States? And then your next question is, how is it less democratic than democracies of today, like the United States? So how is it more, and then how is it less? And remember to pause the video. All right, document E, our last one. Here we go. Helpful if I could find it. All right, here we go. So, Professor John Camp directs excavations of the Athenian Agora, which was a gathering place in ancient Athens. He is also a professor of classics at the Randolph-Macon College. This is an excerpt from an opinion article he wrote in the New York Times in 2003. Cool background info. Moving on. Once a year, the Athenians would meet and vote on a simple question. Is anyone becoming a threat to the democracy? If the simple majority voted yes, then they dispersed and reassembled 2 months later. They brought with them their octration, a fragment of pottery, so just a piece of pottery. I'm sorry if you guys are hearing some drumming. I apologize for that. Fragment of pottery, on which they had scratched the name of the person they thought represented a threat. The man with the most votes lost. He was exiled then for 10 years, and this was thought to calm any anti-democratic leanings he might have. So this is how they get rid of anybody who's against democracy. They're going to vote, and if he's found guilty, he's kicked out for 10 years. In other words, the Athenians not only voted people into office, but they had a regular procedure for voting one person per year out of office. It was an option which could be exercised, but did not have to be. The exile did not involve confiscation, which means taking a property with authority. So confiscation, government comes and takes your land, or any other punitive measures. Punitive means disciplinary. So when they kick somebody out, they're not going to take the person's property. They're not taking anything else. He's just kicked out for 10 years. It was designed only to remove an individual from the political arena. You're just taking out the person, nothing else. The Athenians were better than we are at enforcing accountability in their public officials. Almost every prominent statesman of Athens in the early 5th century BC took one of these 10-year vacations, courtesy of the Athenian people. So every 10 years, every person is going to take a 10-year vacation just to kind of make sure that they themselves are in line with the democracy and have the right values in their heart. There may be pitfalls. One batch of 190 people who were kicked out, Ostraca, found in Athens, all with the name of Themocletes, turned out to be all written by only 13 individuals. The danger is that if a leading statesman is powerful enough and has the votes, Austrianism is a great way to eliminate a weaker but annoying rival. So what that paragraph is saying is that one of the dangers of this is that if a really powerful statesman, he could gather up other supporters. Maybe he has an issue back home with somebody who wants more, who's in the olive business that he's also in, and he's producing better olive oil than he is. Okay, he could kick him out for 10 years and own a monopoly of the olive oil. That's a possible issue. In 417 BC, when the outcome was uncertain, the two top dogs ganged up on Hippopolys, an unlucky number 3. This was such an obvious misuse of the system that the Athenians never used it again. So there is some information there about the voting out of other people. Your questions for document E is, what was an Austrianism in ancient Athens? What was its purpose? Okay, that whole voting out thing, what was that? And did Austrianism make Athens more or less democratic? Did that help them be more like a democracy, rule of the people? Or was it less, to help them be less of a democracy? And tell me why you think that way. If you have any questions on anything that we talked about today, email me. Make sure you turn in those questions so that I know that you guys are doing the work. Have a fabulous day.